Now it appears the law of averages has caught up with Audie Murphy. On a wooded mountain near Roanoke, Virginia this afternoon, rescue workers found 6 bodies and no survivors in the remains of a private plane the 46-year-old Murphy and a group of businessmen had taken in a flight from Atlanta, Georgia last Friday.
Everyone was told Audie Murphy's death was just a tragic plane crash. Case closed, no questions. But when you strip away the headlines and look closer, the story starts to fall apart. Key details don't line up. Important facts were glossed over, and some answers were never given at all. The deeper you dig, the more unsettling it becomes. Why were certain records never fully explained? Why do eyewitness accounts conflict with the official report? And why does so much surrounding Audie Murphy's final hours remain wrapped in silence? This isn't just about how a war hero died. It's about what may have been hidden, and why the truth might be far worse than we were ever told. Audie's brave journey. Audie Murphy grew up as a quiet boy from rural Texas, small in stature but fiercely determined. War would define his life in ways no one could have imagined. Too young to enlist legally, he lied about his age to join the U.S. Army after Pearl Harbor, driven by a deep sense of duty. What followed became one of the most extraordinary military stories in American history. Born on June 20th, 1922, near Kingston, Texas, Murphy entered the Army at just 17. At basic training in Camp Walters, his youthful face earned him the nickname Baby Face, but he quickly proved he was anything but weak. Through discipline and relentless effort, he rose through the ranks, earning respect where he was once doubted. Murphy saw intense combat across North Africa, Sicily, Italy, and France. His courage and leadership propelled him from private to staff sergeant and eventually to second lieutenant, still a teenager by his real age. His defining moment came on January 26, 1945, near Holtzwihr, France, when his unit was attacked by German tanks and infantry. With his company on the brink of being overrun, Murphy ordered his men to retreat to safety while he stayed behind to call in artillery fire, directly on his own position. When a nearby tank destroyer was hit and burst into flames, Murphy climbed onto it and used its machine gun to hold off advancing enemy troops. Wounded in the leg and under relentless fire, he fought alone for nearly an hour until the Germans finally withdrew. Accounts credit Murphy with killing or wounding scores of enemy soldiers that day. While exact numbers are debated, his bravery was undeniable. In June 1945, he was awarded the Medal of Honor, becoming the most decorated American soldier of World War II. After the war, Murphy tried to rebuild his life. He became a movie star and even portrayed himself on screen, but the trauma of combat never left him. Behind the fame were nightmares, guilt, and memories of lost friends. Audie Murphy's story is not just about medals or heroism. It's about a modest young man who stood firm when everything was against him and carried the weight of war long after the fighting ended. Next, we'll look at the difficult road he faced as he entered Hollywood. The beginning of his acting career. After the war, Audie Murphy was celebrated as a national hero, but stepping into Hollywood proved far more challenging than the battlefield. His move from soldier to actor was slow and uncertain, marked by rejection, persistence, and quiet determination. Between 1948 and 1969, he would go on to appear in more than 40 films and a television series, though success did not come easily. Murphy's Hollywood journey began unexpectedly when actor James Cagney noticed him on the cover of Life magazine in 1945. Impressed, Cagney brought Murphy to Los Angeles and signed him to his production company, offering acting, voice, and dance training. Despite the effort, Murphy never landed a role with the studio, and the partnership ended in 1947 after creative disagreements. Refusing to give up, Murphy stayed in Hollywood, living modestly at Terry Hunt's athletic club while working to improve his craft. Under acting coach Estelle Harmon, he studied scripts and practiced material from writers like Shakespeare and William Saroyan. Progress was slow, but steady. A turning point came when screenwriter David "Spec" McClure befriended him and helped co-write his memoir, To Hell and Back. The book kept Murphy in the public eye and opened doors. In 1948, he landed a small role in Texas, Brooklyn, and Heaven, followed by brief appearances in other films. His first starring role came in 1949 with Bad Boy, a breakthrough that led to a 7-year contract with Universal Studios. From there, Murphy built a solid career, especially in westerns, portraying figures like Billy the Kid and Jesse James. By the mid-1950s, he had earned a reputation as a reliable leading man. In 1955, Audie Murphy reached a major turning point when he agreed to play himself in the film adaptation of his memoir, To Hell and Back. Directed by Jesse Hibbs, the movie became a massive success for Universal Studios, largely because audiences were watching a real war hero relive his own story. Murphy promoted the film on television and, almost overnight, completed his transformation from decorated soldier to Hollywood star. Murphy and Hibbs formed a strong working partnership, going on to make 5 more films together across different genres. These included westerns like Walk the Proud Land, as well as lighter projects such as Joe Butterfly and World in My Corner. Their collaboration ended in 1958 with Ride a Crooked Trail. That same year, Murphy delivered one of his most complex performances in The Quiet American, directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz, which showed how far he had grown as an actor. Behind the scenes, Murphy also explored producing. He briefly teamed up with producer Harry Joe Brown, completing The Guns of Fort Petticoat, though their partnership collapsed before other planned projects could happen. He continued acting steadily, starring alongside James Stewart in Night Passage, earning praise for darker roles like the assassin he played in No Name on the Bullet. Television soon followed. In 1960, Murphy appeared in the drama series Star Time and later hosted The Big Picture, a military program that took him to bases around the world. His work on the show earned him recognition from the U.S. Army. Throughout the early 1960s, Murphy remained closely involved with trusted collaborators, including writer Claire Huffaker and longtime friends Willard and Mary Willingham. Together, they created several westerns, with 40 Guns to Apache Pass becoming Murphy's final leading role. He continued to seek variety, filming Trunk to Cairo in Israel in 1966. Murphy's last film, A Time for Dying, was released in 1969. Though his Hollywood career looked smooth from the outside, it was built on persistence, rejection, and constant self-improvement. Starting with no acting background, he fought to be taken seriously, both on screen and off. And as his career advanced, the strain may have quietly followed him home, raising questions about the personal cost of his relentless drive. A life of fame and a private struggle. Audie Murphy was celebrated as a World War II hero and later as a Hollywood star, but his private life was far more complicated than his public image suggested. Behind the medals and movie posters were years marked by love, loss, financial stress, and emotional strain, some of it rooted in the war he never truly left behind. In 1949, Murphy married actress Wanda Hendricks, but the relationship ended just 2 years later. Only days after the divorce, he remarried, this time to Pamela Opal Lee Archer, a former airline stewardess. Their marriage brought him a sense of stability, and together they raised 2 sons, Terry Michael and James Shannon. Fatherhood mattered deeply to Murphy, and family life offered him moments of calm he rarely found elsewhere. One of his greatest escapes was his love of horses. Murphy owned ranches in California and Arizona, where he bred and raced quarter horses. The quiet routine of ranch life and time spent with his animals gave him a sense of peace, far removed from Hollywood and his wartime memories. But this passion came at a cost. Over time, failed investments and poor financial decisions caught up with him. By the late 1960s, he had suffered major losses, including a disastrous oil investment overseas, and faced ongoing tax troubles that left him under heavy financial pressure. Despite his money problems, Murphy refused lucrative offers to promote alcohol or cigarettes, believing it would send the wrong message, especially to young admirers who looked up to him. He took that responsibility seriously, even when it meant turning down easy income. Murphy also struggled with anger and sudden bursts of violence, a lingering effect of his combat years. In 1970, he was arrested after an altercation in California, though the charges were eventually dropped. The incident underscored how difficult it was for him to fully adapt to civilian life. Even as an actor, Murphy stayed closely tied to the military. He served for years in the Texas Army National Guard, helping train soldiers and allowing his image to be used for recruitment. Though he hoped to return to combat during the Korean War, that never happened. His military service officially ended in 1969. Audie Murphy's life was a study in contrasts, extraordinary courage and public success paired with private battles few ever saw. He remained principled, devoted to family, and loyal to the values he believed in, but he also carried wounds that never fully healed. The silent battle after the war. When Audie Murphy returned home from World War II, many believed his hardest battles were behind him. He had survived brutal combat, earned the nation's highest honors, and was celebrated as an American hero. But the war followed him home. The fight simply changed shape, no longer against an enemy, but against his own mind. There was brief discussion about sending Murphy to West Point, and he showed some interest. In the end, he declined, likely realizing that the intense academic demands were more than he could face after years of combat. Instead, in June 1945, he was sent to Fort Sam Houston in Texas, where he was processed with other returning soldiers. Afterward, he was granted a short leave, a time meant for rest and recognition. That summer, Murphy was welcomed everywhere as a hero. He attended parades, banquets, and ceremonies in his honor. In August, he finally received the Good Conduct Medal, and a month later he was officially discharged as a first lieutenant with a 50% disability rating. He joined the Officers Reserve Corps, maintaining a connection to the military without active duty. Behind the public admiration, however, Murphy was unraveling. He suffered from chronic insomnia, violent nightmares, and relentless anxiety. Memories of combat haunted him, and he slept with a loaded gun under his pillow, unable to fully relax even in safety. Medical evaluations in the late 1940s documented severe headaches, nausea, and ongoing sleep disorders. To cope, Murphy turned to sleeping pills, eventually becoming dependent on Placidil. By the early 1960s, he recognized the danger and chose to quit on his own. He locked himself in a hotel room for a week and endured the withdrawal alone, a painful but successful effort. Still, the emotional weight never fully lifted. Those close to him noticed his deep mood swings and intensity. His first wife later described moments when his trauma surfaced in frightening ways. Murphy was also deeply affected by the suffering of others. After seeing footage of war orphans, he reportedly broke down in tears, overwhelmed by guilt and grief. Writing became his outlet. Through poetry, he expressed feelings he struggled to voice aloud. One of his most haunting poems, "The Crosses Grow on Anzio," reflected his sorrow and memories of fallen soldiers. Though he wrote it himself, he initially credited it to a fictional character. As new generations of soldiers returned from Korea and Vietnam, Murphy spoke openly about the hidden wounds of war. At a time when terms like shell shock were still poorly understood, he pushed for greater awareness and better care for veterans suffering emotionally. His advocacy left a lasting impact. Just months after his death in 1971, legislation led to the creation of the Audie L. Murphy Memorial FIFA Hospital in San Antonio, a place dedicated to helping veterans heal in ways Murphy himself never fully could. His war may have ended, but his fight for others continued long after. The Final Flight and a Lasting Echo. In May 1971, Audie Murphy's story came to a sudden and tragic end, not on a battlefield, but in the mountains of Virginia. On a stormy day marked by heavy rain, thick fog, and poor visibility, the small twin-engine plane he was aboard crashed near Roanoke. The pilot, though highly experienced, lacked instrument flight certification, a critical factor in the aircraft striking the mountainside. Everyone on board, including Murphy, was killed. The wreckage was found days later, on May 31st. The news stunned the nation. Murphy, who had survived the worst of World War II, was gone at just 45 years old. His wife, Pamela, was left to rebuild her life, eventually working for decades at a Veterans Administration hospital in Los Angeles, quietly serving those her husband had always cared about. On June 7, 1971, Murphy was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. The service drew military leaders and public figures, including George H.W. Bush and Army Chief of Staff William Westmoreland. His grave, placed in Section 46 facing the Memorial Amphitheater, remains one of the most visited sites at Arlington, second only to President John F. Kennedy's. True to his nature, Murphy requested a simple headstone without special honors, reflecting his wish to be remembered as an ordinary soldier. Memorials followed. A stone marker was placed near the crash site along the Appalachian Trail, and in 1975, a court awarded compensation to his family, though no settlement could replace what was lost. Over time, his legacy only grew. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and decades later, Texas honored him with its highest military distinction. After his death, another side of Murphy emerged. Friends discovered poetry he had written in private, including the haunting "The Crosses Grow on Anzio." Only a handful of his poems survive, revealing a reflective, deeply emotional man. He also co-wrote country songs in his later years, quietly expressing thoughts he rarely spoke aloud. Audie Murphy's life did not end with that final flight. His courage, struggles, and quiet artistry continue to echo, proof that his story was always about far more than war or fame.